death corps of Krieg. These bastards know a thing or two about war. Hailing from the post-nuclear death world of Krieg in the Segmentum Tempestus. Krieg was the setting of a planet-wide rebellion against the Imperium of Man over 1500 Terran years ago. It was bombarded from on high with atomic weaponry. What followed was 500 long years of devastating conflict to cleanse the land of its heretical forces. The Battle of the Somme would have looked like a light afternoon of sport on this world. And after centuries of bitter trench warfare, Krieg was reduced to a scarred world of ash, a world where the very air you breathe is a toxic fume, where radiation exposure would cover you in welts and sores, enough to make the idea of death in battle a welcome break. Underground cities were the only chance of survival. Those 500 years of war had fine-tuned the Death Corps into a battle-hardened siege regiment, key to many a victory for the Imperium across the galaxy. Their willingness to repent for their former treachery makes them a fine source of manpower. Brash disregard for their own lives was almost a doctrine, and any war that needed grinding out, then these lads relished in wars of attrition. Hunkering down with line after line of trench, covered in skin-splitting razor wire, and artillery that sounded like a never-ending thunderstorm on the horizon. In 433 M40, the loyal world of Krieg declared independence from the Imperium. It was on that day, that dark day, that Krieg was changed forever. The steadfast Commander Jurton of the 83rd gathered all those loyalists to the Imperium and struck back against a heretical rebellion. His result was far from the last, but devastating nonetheless, as he unleashed atomic bombardment on those who had turned from the Emperor's light. And after 500 years of long worldwide atomic fire and trench warfare, the rebellion was finally halted. But the cost, irreparable, as Krieg was now a blasted wasteland of death and ash. The remaining populace had been constructing underground hive cities for centuries, and this is the only way you could hope to survive on this world, without proper protective equipment. The very air as big a killer as any weapon you could muster. How do you seek atonement for planet-wide betrayal when you have nothing but ash and mud left to give from the ground? No resources to offer, no wealth to give. So they chose to offer the one thing that meant the least: manpower. Battle-hardened by generation upon generation of war in the most harsh of environments, the sermons of self-sacrifice they were raised on fit like lock and key into the war-torn hell of the 40k universe. Requesting the worst possible odds to face in servitude of mankind. Their reputation precedes them, and their grim attitude and sacrificial nature was the talk among many a mess hall. Nothing but weapons for the Imperium. But don't worry, they enjoy it. Faceless, nameless, and infinitely replaceable, hidden behind their rebreather was nothing but an instrument of implementation of the Emperor's will. Not a single regard for their own lives. Not many regiments in the Astra Militarum like to fight alongside them. Imagine for a minute, if you will, an army that can still instill anxiety even among regiments of experienced Xenos fighting men and women of the Imperium. These are hard bastards. Bastards who don't take too kindly to retreat. So you better hope you run into that horde and don't turn back, because either way you're meeting your end. Krieg commissars have an easy job in the instilling of order, as it's always a given. Their main job is to play third man between Krieg and other regiments they fight alongside, also trying to quell their giddiness for the charge. Krieg is a true war world. It has no industry or agriculture, just an endless production line of fighting soldiers. Rumours spread of unnatural means of reproduction in the depths of Krieg's hive cities. Maybe a blind eye here and there is turned within the Adeptus Mechanicus. Who could say no to endless warmongering meat for the grinder? A world that provides 10 times that of a normal war world. As you can imagine, not many return, if any, as their gusto for the worst war-torn deployment leads to massive casualties. On the other hand, it provides many a glorious victory, to the displeasure of many an Astra Militarum commander who, set in their ways, prefer different approaches to war. Varax Prime was one such war, a war to retake the armory world of Varax, lasting 17 standard years. Siege was their speciality, and siege Varax was, standing toe-to-toe with Chaos Space Marines before breakfast, then all day, every day. 34 regiments were put to the sword that war, and not a soul from the original populace remained. A damn good war. In part 2 of our dive into the lore of the Death Corps, we shall cover this war in greater detail, so make sure to pull the pin and throw a sub into the trenches for more. We always need more meat for the grinder.